Welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space, a space for you to settle in, sit back, relax, and focus a little bit on health, wellness, faith, family, and this crazy thing called life.
This podcast is not a replacement for mental health treatment or professional health care. In case of crisis or emergency, please contact your local healthcare provider or dial 911.
Hey there, and welcome to the Wing Space podcast, a place to take up space. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the importance of being able to pivot and just a little bit about what's been going on in my life that's required me to take that pivot. So if you are a Friends fan, as I am, you, I'm sure, remember that classic episode where they were trying to get the couch up the stairs and Ross just kept saying, pivot, pivot, pivot. Well, it's funny to watch that episode, but it's also funny in life because sometimes what ends up happening is we have to scream to ourselves, pivot, pivot, pivot. And I want to share with you the idea of pivoting as pausing, investigating, voicing options, and taking action. So what in the world does that mean? Well, before I tell you what that means, I want to tell you just a little bit about kind of what's been going on. You know, as a mom and as a business owner, as a wife, as, you know, a active family member and friend, you know, there's a lot that goes on in life. And sometimes we have everything planned out the way that we thought it would. And I have my, you know, record podcast on my calendar every week for a 2-hour block. So I know what I need to do in terms of planning for the podcast and recording. And there are things in life that happen and pull me out of the office. And there's things in the office here that pull me out of behind the camera. And so I found myself behind in recording. If you've been following along with the podcast for a while, you know that we put out 2 podcasts a week, one on Tuesday and one on Friday. Our first episode from last year, we did 30 episodes from September to December. And now here we are in season 2 since January. I think we've put out 20-ish episodes. And so there's a lot that goes into recording 2 episodes a week. And you can imagine trying to stay ahead helps so that when you get behind, you're still ahead. And then once you're behind, you're way behind. And so those of you that listen notice that there were not new episodes last week because I was behind. And this one's coming out with kind of a quick turnaround because I just had to force myself to close the door and make it happen. What happens sometimes is that we find ourselves needing to go forward with some kind of an action. And we don't realize that maybe that direction isn't working, that plan isn't working, and we need to have that pivot. So the first thing I want to ask you to consider is to pause, to take a break, and to consider. And I want to just give a shout out to our marketing director, who is the editor of our podcast, because she actually said to me, like, take the week and think about it and gather yourself and let's just pause, because I just kept moving, right? Record podcast from day to day on my calendar and it just wasn't happening. So huge shout out to Les for saying, you know, pause and take a break. But the reality is that's the first part of a pivot, right? Is we have to pause and we have to say, let's just breathe. Let's just take a break. Using some brainstorming ideas, we then move into the investigate, right? So why was I behind on recording? What were the things that were impacting my ability to stay ahead? So I paused, I did some investigate, and then I voiced, right? She and I talked about it. We shared some emails, we shared some text messages, just kind of going back and forth and voicing our thoughts. And then the O, so we pause, we investigate, we voice. Then the O is that we looked at the options and said, okay, these are some of the options that we could come up with. And one of the options that we talked about was kind of bring season 2 to a close. And that's probably going to happen here soon as we kind of gear up for the next season of the podcast and what that looks like and what that means. Certainly doing an episode about pivoting was not one of those options, but I thought, you know what, let's just be real. Let's just let our listeners know that life happens. And I want you all to know that life happens. And sometimes we can plan to perfection and life still gets in the way. And so we really want to honor the fact that it's okay that we have to make some changes. because then we look at our options and we say, okay, something's got to change, and then we take action. That's the T of pivot. So just a quick little message to you today to encourage you to consider, what might you be going through in your life today that needs you to pivot. It needs you to pause. It needs you to investigate. It needs you to voice some concerns. It needs you to look at your options, and then once you have all of that together, then you can take action. Use that idea going forward, whether it's today, if you're in a situation that's requiring a little bit of discussion or investigation, or in the future. Keep that idea in mind, as funny as it is to hear Ross screaming from the top of the stairs, pivot. In life, sometimes that's exactly what has to happen. So I just encourage you to think about that. We have real things that happen in our lives, even as those of us that put ourselves behind a camera voluntarily. And we just need to be real. And we need to talk about the fact that life happens. We have changes in our schedule. We have stressors that pop up. We have illness, and we have death, and we have losses, and we have struggles. And that's what life is. It's a matter of those ups and downs. And I want you to know that I took the opportunity to take that pivot. I did that pause and the investigation, talked it over with my marketing director and our podcast editor. And here we are using one of the options, a quick little podcast out to you today. And then we're going to gear back up for the end of our season. I would love to hear what you would like either in the second half of our season 2 or coming up in season 3. Some of the options that we could do is some more like walking episodes where I go for a walk and just kind of talk. Maybe things that you could use for your own walk or your run or a bike or something, cleaning the house, whatever it is. If you prefer the episodes where I'm interviewing people more than just me talking to you, I would love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your suggestions and ideas. You can always shoot us a DM through Instagram or Facebook. You can also send me an email, jennifer@hopehealingtherapy.com. Would love to give you the content that you are most desiring and that is most valuable to you. So I invite you to pivot with whatever it is that you've got going on in your life today. I certainly have done that and will continue to do that in the future. And for now, I hope you have a great day, and we will talk soon.